Hey guys, if you're shopping for knives and gear, make sure you check out the description of the video you're watching right now for links to some great online retailers. There's also individual links for knives that I personally recommend. Thanks! What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got another interesting knife review / knife overview to share with you guys. This is the new Spartan Talos. Very cool. Another knife from their field grade or bronze series, which is awesome because it allows you to get your hands on a Spartan for much less money. This knife was sent to me directly by Spartan Blade, so thank you very much for sending this along. Thanks so much to my generous patrons for supporting me. If you'd like to check out my Patreon, there's a link down in the description. And please, follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. There are links for this guy right down in the description. Depending on when you're watching this, it may or may not be available, so feel free to check those out. Let's go ahead and get a measurement of this guy. Overall length of the Spartan Talos coming in at 7 inches on the dot. Blade length is coming in just shy of 3 1/4, and your cutting edge is coming in at about 3.1 inches overall. That's nice. Let's go ahead and do some size comparisons up against the Ontario Rat Model 1. There you go. So you can see here this is on the smaller side. So how about up against the Spyderco PM2 and Para 3? Ooh, that was a terrible flip. There we go. And last but not least, of course, the Benchmade Griptilian, or in this case, the Ritter Hogue, and the Benchmade Mini Griptilian, which will serve as the little brother. So there you go. Pretty close in size to the Benchmade Mini Griptilian, a little bit longer and a little bit more cutting edge. Let's go ahead and do a hardware check here real quick. Get out my tools. As per usual, my tools are very inexpensive and very recommendable. You can find them right down in the description. I think the pivot is probably a T10. That's what it looks like to me. And yeah, there we go. Let's check that here real quick. Yeah, T10 on the pivot, and I don't even need to check the handle scale screws. Those are going to be T6. So, wish they were T8, but that's okay. Let's go ahead and do a carry profile check here. So thickness up against the Spyderco Para 3. You can see here, this is coming in just a little tiny bit thinner than the Spyderco Para 3. Length and height up against the Spyderco PM2 and Para 3. You can see there, definitely not nearly as long as the Para 3 and nowhere close to the PM2. And in terms of height, it's also quite a bit shorter this way too. So that should yield pretty easy carry profile. Taking a look at the inside, you can get my flashlight down in the description. You can see here we've got solid G10 on one side, and then we have a countersunk steel liner lock on the opposite side, the non-show side of the G10. And let's go ahead and measure the blade stock thickness of this guy. I'm going to guess, like the Spartan Aster, this isn't very thick, probably about 125 thousandths or so. This is saying 130. I'm going to guess my calipers are just incorrect. 128 thousandths or so. And weight, which I'm also going to guess is going to come in pretty nice. Get this weight checked here real quick. Weight is coming in at a completely reasonable 2.33 ounces. So nice, lightweight, sort of compact carry knife. If this looks familiar to you, it's because it is a scaled down version, or for the most part, a scaled down version of the Spartan Harzy. That's the full, US version of this knife. Now there is, to mine, I think there's a smaller version of the Spartan Harzy that is US made. This is not a USA made knife. These are made in Taiwan. But the Spartan Harzy, the large one, and I think the new small one, I think there's a smaller model. I haven't handled it yet. Those are both made in the United States and are, it's a much longer, much more hands-on process, so they cost a lot more money. But this is essentially a scaled-down version of that, and I think that's pretty cool because this is a nice-looking knife. This is the part where we transition into the main meat and potatoes of this review. Man, that's much better going faster through the specs. I hope you guys like that. I really like doing that. What we've got on this guy is black G10. Now there is a OD green G10 version of this, and that's kind of, two of the standard colors. We used to always see black, then green, then coyote as the three options. It's just black G10 or green G10, and you've got a medium peel ply texture. It's definitely more aggressive than smooth G10 and even more aggressive than like what Spyderco does with their peel ply texture G10, but it's not insane. It's not like cold steel aggressive. It's definitely going to offer traction. This knife, you can have, if you wear, you know, like me, if you wear an XL glove, you can still get a full 4-finger grip on this guy, which is something that I appreciate, even on a smaller knife. I don't know what my deal is with not enjoying carrying knives that I'm forced to use 2 or 3 fingers. I like to get a full grip on this guy. It does feel nice and capable. And that's largely due to the fact that it's not unbelievably thin. Me personally, I don't like super tiny, thin, narrow knives, right? This has enough meat to it that it still feels good, but it still feels lightweight, which is something that I know a lot of people are going to appreciate. It is nice and smooth. This is pretty tight. I commented on this when I handled the Aster. The Aster I sat around and really flipped over and over and over again, and that's because that was a Les George knife, and it's a full-size knife. It's just more, that was more my style, right? And so I flipped that thing over and over and over again, and it loosened up quite a bit. It wasn't gritty, it was just tight. This one's still tight. I haven't flipped it quite as much, but it is still nice and smooth, and I'm sure it'll loosen up just like the Aster. For those of you confused, like, isn't the Talos a Les George design, but they called the Aster the Aster? Why didn't they call that one the Talos? I have no idea. This one's called the Talos, and the Aster's called the Aster. Anyways, we do have phosphor bronze in here, but we also have to my knowledge, we also have a nylon washer in there as well. Yeah, you can see it right there. Some people like that, some people don't, some people don't care. It is what it is. I think that's going to be just fine. This knife is absolutely made to take out and use, and with the combination of the nylon and phosphor bronze, it's going to keep debris out of the pivot, which is great. So that's fine. In terms of, excuse me, congested. In terms of the action, I think the thumb stud is in a good spot for engagement. You've been watching me deploy it. Standard thumb flick is easy to do. The reverse flick is almost there. I think that's just due to the tightness inside of the pivot. The Aster, the other one in the bronze line right now, or the field grade line, that one I can absolutely do the reverse flick, but I couldn't initially. So I think this one just needs a little bit more playtime. Can almost get it with my fingernail. In any case, it's fine. There is a, you know, in terms of like engaging the liner right here, there's a little bit of jimping, and I can get at it, but I gotta be honest, I think there needs to be a scallop right here, just for engagement, you know, especially over time as this lock bar wears over a little bit, your space to get in there is going to become increasingly more narrow, and there really needs to be an area carved out right here, just to make it that much easier to engage. Is there a knife out on the table that I can use as a point of reference? I wonder if there's something in here that I can use real quick. I wonder if the Praxis is in it. No. Well, maybe the Feldspar. Let's take a look here. Nope, none of them do. Well, knife companies, you guys know what I'm talking about. Areas that are cut out right here so you can get your finger in there. I think that would be a little bit better. It's not bad. The tension on the liner lock is also pretty heavy, so that combined with the narrow space and the fact that you've got some teeth right here, it's going to kind of start to wear on your finger a little bit. I've got a lot of dead skin on my thumb. That's not from this guy, but you can see the indentions. Man, I love the new background. I do, but it has a hard time focusing on what I'm trying to get focused here. But yeah, the indentions there are an indicator of kind of the excess pressure that it's creating on my thumb. It's fine. No big deal. Ergonomics I think are great. I think you're locked in perfectly on this knife. Same issue as the Aster in terms of the thumb stud being in a little bit of the cutting path. You're losing about 1/5 of an inch of edge if you're going to cut straight down. Not that big of a deal, honestly. On this guy, you can get right up behind the edge. And most of the time, you're going to be cutting ever so slightly at an angle, so it's really not that big of a deal. I really like the shape of the thumb studs. I like the texturing on them. They're easy to engage, despite there not being a scallop right here. I don't think we really need that. I think there's plenty of room to get up underneath there, and the action's nice and snappy. It's nice and, you know, authoritative, if you want me to throw that word in there. But yeah, I mean, it feels good to deploy. It's fine. I don't have an issue with that. On the blade, you can see we are, again, using CTS wire. I just bumped my whole table. Sorry about that. We are using CTS XHP, which is welcome. That's a steel that I wish we saw more of in the knife world. It used to be much more prominent. We don't see it as, it's not a new super steel, but it definitely is a super steel. Edge retention coming in right in between S30V and M390. I know there's a lot of space there, but right about there. Not a super tough steel, but incredibly stainless. And as long as it's heat treated correctly, it's going to yield performance that a lot of people are going to want to see in this price range and with this style of knife. which is smaller, general, everyday carry, right? It's going to cut for a long time. We have beautiful tumbling on this, which is something I prefer. I'm really glad they didn't go with a satin finish. I think that just, on knives like this, I think the belt satin finish kind of looks cheap, but this doesn't look cheap at all. Edge is up here, nicely knocked down, nice and smooth. That's great. So we have a simple drop point blade, flat that carries out about 65% the length of the blade. Reasonable thickness out to the tip, which we're going to try to focus on. Yeah, there we go. Reasonable thickness out here, right? Not a lot of material in terms of height. This definitely isn't a knife that you want to go stabbing into stuff and prying around, but it's going to do the trick. Behind the edge, reasonably, I think just normal thinness. It's not incredibly... honestly, the Aster is a little thinner behind the edge, and that's because it's got more room to drop. We're starting out somewhere between 125 and 130 thousandths, which is medium thickness. We don't have a super prominent flat, but we still don't have a lot of room to drop towards the cutting edge, so you're not looking at a laser beam, but you are looking at a very sharp and very capable knife. It's a nice, versatile blade, right? It's kind of right in between, not too thick, not razor thin, right? But a good tip and a good cutting edge, and the edge is done professionally. The edge feels great, feels nice and slicey, and there's a lot of cutting belly, you know, for a knife this size, so I'm happy with that. We do have an exposed stop pin, a really big stop pin on this guy. I mean, it's like the same size as the standoffs, right? No shouldering on the tang of the blade. That's fine. No big deal. I think the overall fit and finish of this is just excellent. I commented on the Aster that it's great. These are made in Taiwan. And if you didn't know, Taiwan is not the same thing as China. I know that sounds condescending, but believe me, I've read some comments from people who just lump them together like they're the same gun. They're not. But that's not to say that some Chinese knives aren't manufactured in a really good way, but Taiwan tends to have really good fit and finish quality in manufacturing, and that's the case here. Everything looks nice, everything meets up. Don't have an issue. We do have some jimping back here, which is functional, feels good in this position. Honestly, I mean, ergonomically, it's great, and also there's not really any hot spots that are really yelling at me. I think the pocket clip is in a good spot. It's the same pocket clip that you'll find on the Aster, and I think it was done incredibly well. Nice deep carry clip, nice continuous rise on the bill, little divot right here. It's nice and rounded off. Really? No, my hand doesn't notice it. I really like that pocket clip. It's a really well done generic pocket clip. We have a lanyard hole back here for lanyard people. A couple of simple pillar style standoffs, right? And yeah, there's no issue with any of that. I think it looks great. It's a simple way to construct a knife. It's nice and strong. The G10 is plenty thick enough that we really don't need a liner on both sides. That would just add weight. And they've countersunk that steel liner lock into the non-show side G10, which reduces the weight a little bit more. So plenty sturdy, but you also get, the lightweight factor, which is great. I think a lot of people are going to appreciate that. This side is much the same as the front, except the adjustment head is over here. Not a free spinning pivot. And also I noticed this, I did not take this guy apart. I know the pivot's not free spinning on the Aster and on this guy. And also I'm going to guess that the body screws are the same on this guy. On the Aster, they're also D-shaped. The handle screws are D-shaped, which means you're not going to have free spinning handle hardware, which is an absolute nightmare. Those of you who own the ZT-0562 that has a bajillion handle screws and standoffs and they spin, ooh, that sucks. But not on this guy. No, they're not going to free spin. So that's nice. I really appreciate that. The pocket clip screws are not recessed. It's really not that big of a deal. Honestly, in and out of the pocket, this thing is just fine. There is going to be a little bit of excess friction considering we've got a medium texture, a medium peel ply texturing. So in and out of the pocket over time, no matter what it is that you're wearing, it's going to fray up your pants just a little bit. That's fine. This is a knife that I think is just fine in an outdoor setting, right? If you're going to work with it outside every day, if you're going to go camping, hiking, hunting, fishing, right? Or if you're going to just carry it in the office or to a formal occasion, the size and dimensions, honestly, it's going to work well in a lot of different settings. It's over that 3-inch mark, so it's not going to be legal everywhere. So keep that in mind, right? But I think this is going to do the trick for a lot of people. Seriously. Let's talk about lockup and centering. So this guy, much like the Aster, is coming in a little bit later than what I normally see on knives of this price range and caliber, right? We're locking up at something like 60%. That's fine because there's no blade play up, down, left, or right, which is much more important than lockup percentage. Obviously, if it's locking up at 99%, you might have a problem, but somewhere in here is perfectly acceptable. And the blade is perfectly centered, which is great. There's no detent lash, no left and right, no up and down. Really great. These are tight when they come from the factory, something I was talking about in the beginning. It's tight. I'm okay with that. I kind of like knives to be a little bit tight and then to break in smooth, so that you don't have wiggle as it breaks in. You don't have to readjust it. I'm not saying you'll never have to readjust it. You'll probably have to readjust it at some points, depending on how often you use it or how often you sit around and flip it. But it's just a little bit tight. I think the biggest issues here are, like in this area, it really needs to have a scallop, some area cut in, right? That's going to relieve a lot of the pressure from the, like, it's still going to be a little bit of excess pressure moving that liner lock over. It's pretty tight on this guy. It's not that big of a deal, but it's going to make that whole process easier if that area was just cut out a little bit. Boy, other than that, really, it's not going to be legal for everybody. Maybe some people won't like the profile or the look of it, right? Maybe it's going to be too simple for some people. Honestly, I just have so few complaints about this guy. And the best part is these come in at $115. This is not a budget knife. CTS XHP, even when coupled with a material like G10, which is commonly available on way less expensive knives, right? It's not super common to find CTS XHP at this price point. And considering the overall fit and finish, right, and the fact that you're getting the legendary Spartan Harzi blade profile in a smaller package, this is good. I really like this. As far as the first two knives go in the bronze series or the field grade series from Spartan Blades, I think these are excellent. And I think most people who pick these up are going to be really, really happy with them. So honestly, it's not a price that I feel like needs to be adjusted. I think it's spot on. I think this is a well-made functional tool that is going to last. Absolutely. Not going to have the fidget factor that some people look for in today's knife world, right? It's not going to have that drop shut action. It's not going to have the, multiple means of deployment and top flipper, front flipper, spidey drop, and whatever. It's not going to, that's not the type of knife that it is. For what it was meant to be, I think they nailed it. Absolutely. This is well executed. And I'm absolutely going to put this on my recommended knives playlist, so you can check that out there. Like I said, there's going to be links for this guy right down in the description if you guys want to check this out for yourself. I'd like to see more colors from this series, even though I think most people looking at these knives probably be okay with the colors that they are offered in initially. And I really hope they continue with more models, because the first two were great. I really hope they continue this bronze series. That's something to watch. Check out Spartan Blades on Instagram. Make sure you check out their website too. I think that's going to be pretty much it today, guys. Be sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe, because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.